Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going on a totally mind-bending, kind of hub-and-spoke journey. We're going to see exactly how a single fundamental rule of biological physics actually ripples out across completely different and seemingly totally unrelated industries. We're taking the core concept of osmosis and following it from the microscopic world of human cells all the way to heavy industrial water engineering and even into the cutting-edge realm of decentralized global finance. It's a really fascinating look at how nature's blueprints scale up to rebuild our modern world.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our agenda for today. First, defining osmosis and diffusion. Second, aquaporins and kidney physiology. Third, medical applications and education. Fourth, reverse osmosis water treatment. And finally, number 5, osmosis in decentralized finance. It's going to be a really fast-paced ride, so let's get into it.
Section 1. Defining osmosis and diffusion. To kick things off, we really need to anchor ourselves in our hub concept. We have to clearly define the physical rule before we can start exploring all of its metaphorical and industrial spokes.
At its absolute core, osmosis is simply water's natural urge to dilute. Whenever you have a barrier, like a semi-permeable membrane, with a really high concentration of solutes, like salt or sugar on one side, and a lower concentration on the other, water will actively move across that barrier to balance things out. It's this relentless, entirely passive drive to reach equilibrium. It naturally reduces the osmotic pressure until that concentration gradient is completely eliminated.
Now, we should definitely take a second to separate osmosis from its very close cousin, diffusion. Notice the perfume bottle over on the left. Diffusion is the movement of basically any particle, solids, liquids, or gases, from a high to a low concentration without needing a membrane at all. Think about opening a bottle of perfume and eventually smelling it all the way across the room. Osmosis, on the right, is strictly about water moving across a membrane. I mean, if you've ever soaked limp vegetables in water and watched them magically regain their firm, crisp texture, you've literally witnessed osmosis in action. The water's just moving into the vegetable cells to balance out those internal solutes.
Section 2, aquaporins and kidney physiology. So now that we've got our textbook definition down, let's step into the first major spoke of our explainer. We're going to look at how this concept created a massive puzzle for biologists that wasn't actually solved until the late 1990s.
For decades, scientists knew perfectly well that water moved through our cells to keep us alive, especially inside the kidneys. But there was a major, glaring mathematical problem here. The cell membrane is made of lipids, which are fats, and those are inherently hydrophobic, meaning they completely repel water. Calculations actually proved that for water to just diffuse through this fatty barrier on its own, it would require an activation energy of more than 10 kilocalories per mole. In cellular terms, that is an impossibly high energy toll. Our kidneys filter water way too quickly for that massive energy requirement to make any sense.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the stark visual difference between the two pathways. Over on the left, you can see water just struggling to break hydrogen bonds to cross the membrane unaided. But on the right, we see the massive biological breakthrough, aquaporins. Discovered in 1988, these are specialized protein channels built right into the cell membrane itself. They dramatically lower that activation energy to less than 5 kilocalories per mole. Basically, they give water a dedicated high-speed VIP lane straight through that hydrophobic barrier.
And when I say high speed, I mean absolutely staggering speed. 3 billion. That is the number of water molecules that gush through a single aquaporin channel every single second. Without them, water would merely trickle across the membrane. This discovery was so incredibly profound that it actually earned Dr. Peter Agre the 2003 Nobel Prize for Chemistry, and it forever changed our understanding of human physiology.
Taking a look at this stretched-out view of a nephron in the kidney, we can really see how osmosis acts as nature's ultimate filtration system. As blood filtrate passes through the proximal convoluted tubule, that's the curly section over on the left, the kidney reabsorbs 70% of the water volume, sending it right back into the body while leaving all the waste behind. And remarkably, the osmolarity, or the concentration, barely even changes. Why? Because the water is just perfectly following the reabsorbed ions through osmosis.
Section 3, Medical Applications and Education. Understanding all this biological machinery isn't just some dry academic exercise. It has massive, real-world implications for doctors and medical students alike.
And this brilliantly illustrates where medical science actually manipulates osmosis to save lives. In hospitals, doctors use specific drugs called osmotic diuretics, and mannitol is a really prime example of this. If a patient comes in with severe brain swelling, doctors will administer mannitol intravenously. Because mannitol is retained right there in the vascular compartment, it dramatically spikes the solute concentration in the blood. So just by the sheer rule of osmosis, water is drawn straight out of the swollen brain tissue, crossing the membrane into the blood to dilute that mannitol. It literally uses water's natural urge to reach equilibrium to rapidly reduce life-threatening intracranial pressure.
In fact, the concept of osmosis is so foundational to modern medicine that one of the largest medical education platforms in the entire world actually adopted it as their name. The Osmosis Learning app, which is trusted by over 8 million students, relies heavily on spaced repetition and visual videos. The whole goal is to help complex, isolated medical facts naturally diffuse into a student's brain. Just like water connects different sides of a membrane to build balance, the app connects medical concepts. That way, future doctors can actually apply them clinically rather than just rote memorizing a bunch of random facts.
Section 4. Reverse osmosis water treatment. All right, so we've seen osmosis inside the human body, and we've seen it used as a medical tool. Now, let's dramatically scale things up. Let's look at how heavy industry engineers this exact natural phenomenon to purify the very water we drink and use in global manufacturing.
So in nature, as we know, osmosis moves water to dilute a concentrated solution. But what if we want to do the exact opposite? What if we want to extract pure water out of a highly contaminated solution? Well, we apply massive external pressure to force the water backward, completely against its natural urge. This is reverse osmosis, or RO. The water first passes through sediment and carbon filters to strip out large particles in chlorine, right before it hits the RO membrane itself. And get this membrane has pores as small as 0.001 microns. That is so incredibly fine that literally only pure water molecules can squeeze through, leaving dissolved salts, heavy metals, and microbes completely trapped behind. The scale of this application across the globe is just immense. An industrial RO system eliminates up to 99% of total dissolved solids. And we're not just talking about your tap's drinking water here. I mean, semiconductor manufacturing requires water so incredibly pure that a single microscopic ion could ruin an entire electronic chip. Hospitals require ultra-pure water for their dialysis machines to keep patients safe. Reverse osmosis provides the ultra-pure, ultra-reliable foundation that entire modern industries rely upon every single day.
Section 5. Osmosis in decentralized finance. For our final, and honestly, probably our most unexpected spoke today, we are leaving the physical world of biological fluids and purified water entirely. We're entering the digital world to see exactly how osmosis powers decentralized global finance. Over in the Cosmos blockchain ecosystem, there is a massively prominent decentralized exchange that is simply called Osmosis. It functions as an automated market maker, or an AMM. Now, traditional stock markets use order books and human middlemen to match buyers and sellers. But an AMM, it uses smart contracts and user-funded liquidity pools to balance token trades completely automatically. It is a direct, brilliant metaphorical bridge to biology. Just as water flows across a membrane to automatically balance the concentration gradient of solutes inside a cell, an AMM automatically adjusts the prices of crypto tokens to perfectly balance the concentration of digital assets in a liquidity pool.
So, the crucial point is, how do you actually encourage everyday people to put their own assets into these pools to make the trading work in the first place? Well, if we look at the Osmo token distribution breakdown, a massive 40.5% is completely dedicated to liquidity reward mining. By offering the native Osmo token as a reward, the protocol heavily incentivizes users to become liquidity providers. They are essentially stepping up and supplying the digital water that allows the entire decentralized exchange to function fluidly, without needing any central authorities calling the shots.
Now, one major headache in decentralized finance is what they call mercenary yield farmers. These are users who drop their assets in just for a quick buck and then pull them right back out rapidly, which really destabilizes the whole system. The Osmosis app chain combats this with a genius mechanism called superfluid staking. It actually allows the token sitting in a liquidity pool to simultaneously secure the underlying proof-of-stake blockchain. By structurally rewarding long-term liquidity and chain security at the exact same time, the protocol ensures that the whole ecosystem remains balanced, healthy, and highly protected against sudden economic shocks. It's a real game changer.
It is just truly incredible to zoom out and see this pattern at play. A fundamental physical law that drives 3 billion water molecules through a tiny cellular channel every single second is the exact same underlying logic we use to relieve human brain swelling, engineer hyper-pure water for computer microchips, and automate billion-dollar liquidity markets on the blockchain. It leaves us with a pretty fascinating thought, right? If this simple rule of cellular biology can revolutionize both heavy industry and decentralized finance,
What other hidden secrets of nature are out there, just waiting to be discovered and used to rebuild our digital world? Keep your eyes open, folks. The blueprints are quite literally all around us. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll catch you on the next one.